At my baby's first birthday party, something happened that no one who was there will ever forget. Right as we were about to cut the cake, my husband's ex-girlfriend stormed into our backyard like a hurricane. She pointed straight at me, her voice trembling with rage, and screamed, "She's not the real mom." For a moment, the world stood still. The music cut out. The conversation stopped. Every pair of eyes turned to me, holding my baby girl in my arms. She looked up at me, completely innocent, just happy to be surrounded by balloons and cupcakes. I tightened my hold around her tiny body and smiled, not because I wasn't hurt, but because I knew something she didn't. We were ready for this moment. My husband had gotten the DNA test results weeks ago, sealed in an envelope, tucked away just in case his ex ever tried something this insane. And now here we were, in front of our family, our friends, and even our neighbours who peeked over the fence, caught in the middle of a scene I wouldn't have believed if I hadn't lived it myself. She didn't just accuse me of lying. She attacked the heart of everything we had built, our family, our daughter, our future. But what she didn't realize was that we had the truth in our hands. He didn't hesitate. He turned, walked inside, and came back holding that envelope like it was a loaded weapon. My heart pounded so hard I thought I could hear it echoing off the walls of our house. Everyone was dead silent. I could see my mom gripping the side of the table, white-knuckled. My sister wiped a tear off her cheek. My best friend mouthed, "Are you okay?" across the yard. I nodded, but inside, I was boiling. He stood in the center of the backyard. He looked at me first, locking eyes with me like he was trying to give me every ounce of strength he had. Then he looked at her. His voice was steady, but there was an anger in it I had never heard before. He opened the envelope and pulled out the document. He didn't waste time, didn't try to soften it. He read it out loud for everyone to hear. Paternity probability, 99.999%. He is the biological father of our daughter. I felt my knees go weak, not because I doubted, but because hearing it out loud was like a full-body confirmation that love, truth, and family always win in the end. Her face drained of color. She stumbled backward like she'd been slapped. No one said a word. Not a gasp, not a whisper, just the sound of the paper fluttering in his hand and her shaky breathing. She turned and ran. Ran straight out the gate, down the sidewalk, and out of our lives for good. And me? I kissed the top of my daughter's head and smiled wider than I had all day. Because no matter what lies someone tried to throw at us, we had the truth. And it was stronger than any scream, any accusation, any bitterness clinging to the past. That day was supposed to be about her. And it still was. We sang her happy birthday. We ate cake. We danced on the grass. We celebrated the miracle that was our daughter and the family we fought to protect. But I'll never forget the moment she tried to tear it all apart, and how, standing there under the afternoon sun, holding my daughter close, I realized she could never touch what we had. Not even close. The morning of her first birthday had started with sunlight pouring through our bedroom windows. He was already awake, sitting at the edge of the bed, watching our daughter babble and giggle in her crib. I stood there for a moment, taking it all in. This was everything I had ever wanted. And we had worked so hard to get here. The pregnancy had not been easy. There were days when I could barely move from the couch, mornings when I cried without knowing why, and nights when he held my hand through every sharp pain and wave of fear. We had waited so long for this baby. We had prayed for her, hoped for her, and when she finally arrived, tiny, pink, and screaming, we both cried like we had been holding our breath for 9 months straight. That morning, as sunlight hit the white curtains and the smell of vanilla cake drifted from the kitchen, it felt like everything had finally come full circle. He reached into the crib, picked her up, and whispered, "Happy birthday, sunshine." I watched her little fingers grab his nose and my heart swelled with love so big I thought it would burst. We had spent the whole week preparing. Blowing up balloons, setting up the backyard, making sure the playlist had every silly song she liked to bounce to. I even wore the same dress I had worn on our baby shower day, only this time, it fit a little differently and had a few cake stains by the end of the day. Our family started arriving one by one. His parents brought a giant stuffed elephant. My sister came with her kids, already sticky from candy in the car. The laughter was easy, the kind that floats around and wraps itself around people. We sang, played silly games, and passed Ellie around like a precious little prize. And then, that storm came. When she crashed in and screamed, "She's not the real mom," I didn't feel anger at first. I felt fear. Not for myself, but for my daughter. She didn't deserve to have her day ripped apart like this. But standing there, surrounded by everyone who loved us, I remembered, we had prepared for this. When he came back with that envelope, I could see in his eyes that he wasn't just defending me, he was protecting the family we had built together. The way he read that paper, his voice didn't shake once. It was firm, clear, and final. After she ran off, and the air in the backyard slowly started to feel normal again, people didn't go back to their conversations right away. There was this quiet kind of respect hanging in the air. They had seen it with their own eyes. The drama, the doubt, and then the truth shining through like sunlight after a storm. Later that evening, after the guests had gone home and the balloons had started to sag, we sat on the couch, just the three of us. She had frosting in her hair, and he had cake on his shirt. I leaned my head on his shoulder, and we watched our daughter sleep, her little chest rising and falling so peacefully. We didn't need to talk about what happened. We had lived it. And now we had moved past it. But I'll never forget what I felt when he looked at me that day, like I was home. Like no matter who tried to drag the past into our present, they would never win. Because love, real love, doesn't flinch in the face of chaos. It holds strong, stands tall, and protects what matters most. And that's what we did. The morning was peaceful, but it didn't quite feel like the calm after the storm. It felt like the space between heartbeats, the quiet after something heavy has happened but before the world adjusts itself again. The house was still, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards as I moved from room to room, making sure everything felt right. Ellie was still sleeping soundly in her crib, her tiny chest rising and falling with each soft breath. I stood there for a long moment, watching her, feeling a lump form in my throat. The way she lay so still, so perfect, was a reminder of everything we had worked for. Everything we'd fought for. And everything we had to protect. I couldn't shake the memory of her screams from the day before. The way she had barged in, all fury and accusations, making us all feel like we were back at square one. I hated how it made me question myself, how it made me doubt whether I was enough. But I wouldn't let that linger. I wouldn't let her steal my peace. My hand instinctively moved to my stomach, still soft with the memory of pregnancy. I had gone through so much to get here. Sleepless nights, endless doctor's appointments, the physical and emotional toll. But all of it had led to this moment. To Ellie. To our family. I heard the sound of the coffee machine bubbling in the kitchen, and then his voice. "Hey," he called, his voice soft, almost as if he was trying not to wake the house. I walked into the kitchen to find him standing by the counter, his back to me. His shirt was wrinkled from the night before, and his hair was a little tousled. It was strange how even in those small, imperfect moments, he still looked like everything I needed. He looked like home. "Morning," I said quietly, walking over to him. He turned to face me, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. He wasn't wearing the weight of yesterday's storm anymore. His eyes were clear, his posture relaxed. And that meant everything to me. That meant we had made it through. "How'd she sleep?" he asked, his voice warm as he poured 2 cups of coffee. He already knew the answer, but he wanted to hear it from me. "She's fine," I replied, leaning against the counter. "She's probably still asleep." He placed a cup in front of me and then slid one of his hands into mine. The simple act of holding my hand, his fingers wrapping around mine like they had 1,000 times before, felt grounding. Like we were anchored together. Nothing could shake us when we were like this. "Do you think she'll come back?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, as I looked up at him. He met my gaze, his eyes serious but steady. "She might. But we've got everything we need right here," he said, motioning toward the living room, toward Ellie, who was still sleeping peacefully. There was something about the way he said it. So calm, so sure. It wasn't just words. It was a promise. And in that moment, I believed him. We were stronger than any storm she could bring. We decided to go for a walk, to get some fresh air, to get out of the house and reset our minds. I dressed Ellie in her favorite Odyssey, a little outfit with tiny butterflies on it that made her look even more precious than usual. The weather was warm, with a soft breeze that ruffled the leaves on the trees. It felt like the world was still waking up, like the whole neighborhood was still holding its breath after the drama of yesterday. As we walked, I pushed Ellie's stroller while he walked beside me, his hand resting on the back of it, guiding her along with us. There was something comforting about the rhythm of our steps, the quiet of the morning, and the way Ellie's laughter echoed through the air as we walked down the sidewalk. I could feel the bond between us, even in those little moments. The way he glanced at me with that small smile, the way he reached out to gently touch my arm when he thought I needed it. It wasn't just love, it was a quiet understanding, a kind of peace that you only find when you know someone inside and out, when you've been through enough together to trust that no matter what, you'll be okay. After a while, we stopped at a little park, just a few blocks away. It was quiet here too, with only a couple of kids playing in the distance. I let out a deep breath, feeling the tension in my shoulders ease, the weight of yesterday starting to lift. We sat down on a bench, and I took Ellie out of her stroller, holding her close as she wiggled in my arms, giggling at the feel of the breeze against her tiny face. "It's funny," I said softly, watching her, "how something so small can change everything." He looked at me, his face serious, but his eyes filled with warmth. "She's changed everything, in the best way possible." I smiled, leaning against him as we watched her. I hadn't realized until that moment how much I needed him here. Needed us to be this solid foundation for Ellie, no matter what anyone else threw at us. Later that night, after we had put Ellie to bed, we sat in the living room, the house quiet except for the occasional creak of the house settling. We didn't need to talk about what happened yesterday. We both knew we'd handled it. We knew we had each other. That was all that mattered. But I did need to ask him something. "Do you ever worry about the future?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. He turned to look at me, his gaze thoughtful. "I used to," he admitted. "But not anymore. Not with you. Not with her." I leaned back against the couch, feeling that same deep sense of peace wash over me again. The future was unpredictable, sure, but we'd face it together. As a family. And that was enough. Tomorrow would come, and so would the next challenge, but as long as we had each other, nothing could break us. We walked in silence for a little while, both of us wrapped in our own thoughts. The sun was higher now, and the air had warmed, but it still felt like the world was holding its breath, waiting. Ellie was happily kicking her legs in her stroller, babbling to herself, as if she hadn't noticed the heavy weight that still clung to the air between us. But I noticed it. And I knew he did too. As we turned a corner, he stopped walking and looked at me, his gaze intense, almost pained. "What if she's right?" he asked quietly, like the question was gnawing at him. "What if I'm not enough for you? For her? What if she takes this from us? I can't." I reached for his hand, stopping him before the spiral could take hold. His fear, his doubt, was raw, and it hit me harder than I expected. He was so used to being the one to fix everything, to make it right, but this wasn't something that could just be fixed with strength and resolve. I squeezed his hand gently, drawing him back to me. "You are enough. For me. For Ellie. Don't you see?" My voice trembled as I spoke, but I steadied it, looking him in the eyes. "You've already given me everything I need. And we've built something real. No one can take that away from us. Not her, not anyone." He closed his eyes briefly, taking a deep breath as if he was trying to release the tension in his chest. Then, without saying a word, he nodded, as if acknowledging the truth in my voice. We continued walking, and I could tell that the conversation had done something for him. The weight had shifted, even if just a little. But I knew it wasn't over. There would be days, maybe even weeks, where we would both carry the fear of what happened, the fear that she might come back, try to tear us apart. We had to be ready for that. But more than that, we had to keep choosing each other. Every day. Later that evening, after we'd come back home and put Ellie to bed, we sat together on the couch, the house finally quiet again. The hum of the fridge was the only sound, and it felt almost peaceful. Almost. But there was still a lingering unease, a knot in the pit of my stomach that hadn't unraveled. I turned to him, sitting beside me, his arm draped casually across the back of the couch. His eyes were tired, but there was a softness in them that I hadn't seen all day. He was more himself now, less haunted by the uncertainty. "I've been thinking," I started, my voice soft but steady, "maybe we need to take a break from the world for a while. Just the three of us. No distractions. No drama. Just us." He turned to me, his eyebrows lifting slightly, surprised. "You mean, like a getaway? Where?" I shrugged, a smile tugging at the corner of my lips. "I don't know. A cabin in the woods. Or a little beach house. Somewhere no one can find us." His face softened, the tension in his shoulders easing. "That sounds perfect." "I just want to protect her," I continued, looking at our daughter's nursery door, where she was sleeping soundly, the room glowing in the soft light of the night. I want to give her a childhood full of love, not fear. And I want us to remember what it feels like to just be us. He nodded, his lips curving into a smile. We'll do it. As soon as we can. And we'll be okay. I know we will. I leaned my head against his shoulder, sighing as I closed my eyes. In this moment, I wasn't thinking about the storm that had passed or the storms that might come. I wasn't thinking about the lies or the chaos that someone else had tried to bring into our lives. I was just with him, with our daughter, in the quiet peace we'd carved out for ourselves. We had each other. And that was more than enough. The next few weeks were filled with normal things: Ellie's first tooth, more late-night feedings, laughter echoing through the house as we played with her. But there were also harder moments. We had to face the reality that the world hadn't stopped. That some people, like his ex, might keep trying to invade our lives and disrupt our peace. But with each new challenge, we stood a little taller. Every time the past tried to come crashing back, we fought back together, hand in hand. We took those small, quiet moments to remind ourselves what we were building, what we had already built. We kept Ellie close, kept our love close. And when the time came to take that little getaway, we found ourselves in a tiny cabin on the edge of a lake, where the only sounds were the wind in the trees and the occasional splash of fish jumping. We didn't talk much during those first few days, but there was something comforting in the silence. Something healing. Ellie splashed in the shallow water, her laughter ringing through the air, while he and I sat on the porch, our fingers intertwined, watching her. The world felt far away in that moment. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to believe that we had made it. That we were going to be okay. We came back from that cabin different. Not wildly, not loudly. Just calmer, closer, stronger. We'd taken that time to breathe again, to exist outside of all the noise, and it reminded us of why we started this journey in the first place. It wasn't because life was perfect. It was because we were willing to fight for it, together. When we got home, the house didn't feel like a war zone anymore. It felt lived in. Like a family had been raised here. There were fingerprints on the windows, toys wedged under the couch, and a sippy cup rolling around in the hallway. And it all made sense. It wasn't chaos anymore. It was love, scattered in the shape of a life we had built with open hands. Ellie turned 2 not long after that. We kept it small this time, just a few close family members, a homemade cake, and way too many bubbles in the backyard. No drama, no interruptions. Just her little voice squealing with delight, his hands gently guiding her on her new tricycle, and me, watching from the porch, heart full and quiet. I think that's what healing really looks like, not a grand moment of triumph, but these tiny scenes you collect over time. A giggle. A shared glance. A sigh of relief when no one is looking. Sometimes I still remember the way his ex stormed into that birthday party, how she tried to unravel everything we'd sewn together stitch by stitch. And yeah, there's a sting when I think about it. But there's also something else, gratitude. Because it tested us, and we didn't fall apart. If anything, we came out stronger. I'll never forget what it felt like to see him stand up that day. Not just for me, but for Ellie. For us. There was no hesitation in his voice, no doubt in his heart. He chose us. Over and over again. And when someone chooses you like that, when they protect your peace, even when it would be easier to walk away, you never forget it. He's not perfect. I'm not either. We've had days when words were sharp and the silence between us felt too loud. But we keep showing up. We keep trying. And when I hear him reading bedtime stories to our daughter, his voice low and full of wonder, I know in my bones that love like this doesn't come around often. And when I tuck Ellie in and she wraps her tiny fingers around mine, I know we did something right. So no, I'm not the woman who let another tear apart her family. I'm the woman who stayed. The one who stood her ground. The one who knew that love doesn't always show up as flowers and candlelight. It shows up in hard conversations, quiet forgiveness, and the decision to keep choosing each other. Every single day. And that's exactly what we're doing. Still here. Still choosing. Still whole.